Good morning. A lot of you all have asked questions about the unity teachings from time to time, and those of you who come here regularly are well aware that Katrina and I have been devoting the last few months to answering these questions that you've been asking, particularly about the history of unity and what teachings and philosophies influenced Unity's co-founders Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, and some of their metaphysical Bible interpretations, like the Ten Commandments, the Lord's Prayer, and some of the characters in the Bible. Like last week we talked about the biblical prophets and how they represent the prophet within each of us. But today I'd like to review some of the actual teachings and principles inherent in the unity path. Might be new information to some of you, and it's always a good review for all of us to go over these periodically. But before talking about the specific beliefs of unity, I want to point out very clearly that unity is not so much a set of beliefs as it is an attitude. It's a way of life. In that way, it's very much like Buddhism. It's a path. It's a way of life. It's not a religion per se. It's not unusual, in fact, to find people who have never even heard of unity, but who have beliefs and attitudes that are very similar to ours. It's quite common for someone to hear the unity teachings for the first time and say, "That's what I've believed half of my life." The reason for this is that unity's teachings spring from universal wisdom that is within the heart of every person. One of the most basic principles of unity is that we honor that wisdom of the heart, or the wisdom of the ages, as Manly P. Hall calls it. And we believe that it will guide us to truth. Our hearts will guide us to the truth. And remember, no religion has a monopoly on truth. Truth is part of the very fabric of the universe. It's that truth that we really teach at Unity. Unity's fundamental teaching is reflected in the statement that we say here all the time: there is but one power and one presence in the universe, and that is God the Good. Another way of saying this is that everything and everyone in the universe is an expression of what we often call God, which is absolute good. God is all. All is good. That's all there is. That's why it's impossible to be an atheist from the unity point of view, because we believe that absolutely everything that exists is God, and it's pretty hard to deny everything that exists. In unity, we certainly don't see God as some being out there in some far-off place in some other dimension. We don't see God as separate from life. God is life. God is intelligence. God is absolute good. God is not a being who sits on some throne out there judging his creation. God is perfect life, perfect love, perfect intelligence, omniscience, expressing itself through every form in the universe. Is mankind an expression of God? Some people ask. Yes, most definitely, absolutely. And we believe that a full realization of this truth will solve every problem that humans face. You are one with God. When we realize this, our life and our world are completely transformed in a very profound way. Now, I want to emphasize the word realize here, as opposed to the word believe. To believe something means we hold it true in our minds. Intellectually, we believe it. When we realize something, though, really realize it, We go far beyond just this intellectual belief. We make something a reality in our lives, a part of our everyday life. We experience it. Our goal at Unity is to realize our oneness with God in a very deep way. We believe that God's universe is perfect. And when we experience our oneness with Spirit, we will see that perfection. It's hard to sometimes otherwise. We believe that the root cause of every problem is our deep-seated belief that we are separated from God, separated from the very flow of universal life, in other words. The belief in separation causes us to feel fear and anxiety, loneliness, insecurity, and powerlessness, often in a universe where we feel powerless. Because of this belief in separation and the resultant fear, we often struggle. That's the reason why we often struggle in life. And we tend to start competing, and we attack, and we defend. As we realize our oneness with God and our oneness with each other, because we're all parts of God, we recognize the perfection of the universe, and we start experiencing the peace and the joy and the abundance that we should be feeling all the time. Perhaps an obvious question is, how do we go about realizing our oneness with God? In Unity, we believe that the very purpose of our life here on earth is to bring us closer to the realization of this oneness. Every experience that we have, every single one of them, gives us the opportunity to come into a greater realization of this. So, one answer to the question of how to experience oneness is to make peace with every single experience that we have. We don't fight it. We don't try to escape from it. We make peace with it. This means to forgive ourselves, to forgive others. This means to accept our experiences with the awareness that each one is our teacher, certainly can be our teacher, not a war to be fought. Very often, our most challenging experiences are those that teach us the most. We all kind of know that. Every experience is an opportunity to work on ourselves and remove the illusion of separateness and to come closer to that realization of the truth of our oneness with the all. We talked about that last week. For example, when we're angry at someone else because of something that person did or said, instead of blaming them and getting all upset and struggling and creating suffering in ourselves by blaming them and missing the opportunity to grow, we can consider what that person triggered in us, not what that person said or did. That's not our concern. We really can't deal with that most of the time. But what did that trigger in us? Maybe a feeling of inferiority or worthlessness. Maybe that's why we're angry. Then we can look at that part of us, those feelings of insecurity or unworthiness, and we can heal ourselves instead of just blaming the other person for making us mad. And then the next time somebody says something similar, we won't even react because we'll understand the whole thing. We can look at those insecurities in us that got triggered, and we can work on them. Another way to facilitate oneness with God is through prayer, of course. In Unity, we see prayer, not just saying words or talking to God even, but rather communing with God, becoming one with God. This is the point of our prayer and meditation time every Sunday. It's to get out of the intellect and into what the teachings are really pointing toward, our oneness with God. We can thus align ourselves with the God principle and all that omniscience, that power and presence. Prayer is a quiet realization of truth. Prayer is the experience of knowing that we are one with God. Prayer is not an attempt to change God or even to change our circumstances in life. Prayer is rather, true prayer, the highest form of prayer, is a way of aligning ourselves with truth, the truth that is God. As we know the truth, we are free from the bondage that comes from ignorance and from belief in illusion and limitations. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set thee free. No truer words were ever spoken. In unity, we see man to be a threefold being: spirit, soul, and body. These are not three separate entities, but rather three aspects of our fundamental essence. Spirit is that aspect of our consciousness that is ever connected with the universal life source, or God. That is spirit. The spirit of man has access to infinite love, wisdom, and power. Now, the soul of man is his consciousness awareness. It is his thinking, feeling nature. It is from the soul that we make the choices that affect our lives. Our body is the vehicle we use to function in this physical world. Our body is a reflection, though, of our soul. When the soul is a perfect reflection of spirit, we believe that our body will likewise reflect the perfection of that spirit. We believe that the universe and everything in it functions in accord with universal law. One of the most fundamental of all laws is the law of cause and effect. We believe that the material world is the world of effect. The mind is the cause. Everything has its origin in mind. Everything that exists physically had an origin, as its origin, an idea in our mind. In unity, we often refer to this principle as the law of mind action, which could be stated as follows: beliefs held in mind will produce in the outer world after their own kind. Another statement often given at unity is life is consciousness. This means that our experience in the world is a result of the belief systems that we hold in our mind. Because of the importance of this principle, we in unity pay a great deal of attention to what we believe. Now, this may sound like a contradiction because earlier we said that doctrines or creeds are not of fundamental importance in unity. What is important is not so much the doctrine or creed to which we intellectually subscribe, but rather what we actually believe in our heart. What we hold to be true in the deepest part of ourselves is that which affects our lives the most, of course. Many of these beliefs or judgments were learned in childhood, and we may not even be aware of some of them. Yet they affect our life in a profound way. So we need to do everything possible to make ourselves aware of these deep-seated beliefs that we have. Know thyself. Meditation is a great way to do this. Some of these old beliefs are what cause us the most suffering. So we need to see them and let them go. Deep-seated hatreds, prejudices, judgments, and all kinds of unforgiveness towards certain people, certain groups, even certain countries. Longfellow once said, if we could only read the secret history of our enemies, we would find in each person's life the sorrow and suffering that would disarm all our hostility toward that person. There's a Japanese proverb that says the same thing. Search 7 times before you suspect anyone. Jesus said, forgive 70 times 7. In unity, we seek to know and understand ourselves and others so that we can let go of some of our belief systems which cause us and the world suffering. In unity, we believe in absolute forgiveness of ourselves and others. We release others from prison, so to speak. We unlock the prison door and we let the forgiven person out. Who we're really letting out, though, is ourselves. And don't forget that this need to quit judging and forgiving, and start forgiving, is true for judging and forgiving yourself. All people are worthy of that, including you. You owe that to the world, because if you don't forgive and love yourself, you really don't have anything to give to other people. One of the tools that we use in unity to change our inner belief system is that of denials and affirmations. A denial is a statement that negates the erroneous beliefs that we have. An affirmation is a statement of truth. For example, suppose we were raised with the belief that we were poor, or that maybe we were unworthy for some reason, and that we would never have the good in life that we deserve. An appropriate denial, an affirmation, might be, I refuse to believe in lack or limitation. I am a child of God, and therefore prosperity and happiness are my birthright. Let's all repeat that, since words are so important. Repeat after me. I refuse to believe in lack or limitation. I refuse to believe in lack or limitation. I am a child of God. I am a child of God, and therefore prosperity and happiness are my birthright. And therefore prosperity and happiness are my birthright. We at Unity believe that there is great power in speaking the word. A question often asked at Unity is this one. If there is only one God, the good, where in the world does evil come from? In Unity, we see evil as the result of our erroneous beliefs, a result of our ignorance of the truth. And all apparent evil disappears when we realize the truth. Evil is not a real force in itself, but rather the result of our ignorance of who and what we are, an individualized expression of God. To use Mary Baker Eddy's words, evil is just the absence of good. It isn't an entity in and of itself. It doesn't exist. So Satan, the devil, all that, this is poetry. This is not a real thing. Another often asked question is, what do you believe about Jesus? Do you believe that he is the Son of God? Hear that one a lot. You may recall that our foundation belief at Unity is that everyone is an expression of God. Therefore, Jesus is the Son of God. And so are you, and so am I. What makes Jesus different from us is not that he was created different, but that he attained a full realization of his oneness with God. He realized this. Jesus did what you and I will someday do. Jesus came into full realization of the truth of his being, and he taught us how to do the same. Jesus, the man, became the Christ. At that point, he became Jesus Christ, not just Jesus. Jesus Christ said, "Come follow me. The works that I do, ye shall do also." Clear as can be. He is admonishing all of us to become the Christ, and he shows us the path. What about the Bible? Do we see it as the Word of God? Do we take it literally? Although there are parts of the Bible that can be taken as literal truth or history, we certainly don't believe that the entire Bible should be taken literally. The Bible is a collection of myths and legends and folklore, poems, hymns, proverbs, visions, dreams, and historical accounts. We believe that the so-called Word of God is written in the heart of every man. The Bible can be a very valuable tool for discovering this truth within ourselves. We see the teachings and the stories in the Bible as symbolic accounts of the process of our own spiritual evolution. It isn't the only God, but it's a powerful one, if properly understood, which is what we spend a lot of time on here at Unity, the metaphysical interpretation of the Bible. Unity does not claim to be the sole interpreter of truth. No one has that ability. Truth is like a mountain. We can see the mountain from many different angles, and it may look different from each different vantage point, yet it is the same mountain, no matter where we see it from. Certainly truth is not meant to be just looked at, though. We must climb the mountain of truth. Each of us must follow our own path, but we'll all meet at the top. I like to look at the different religions and different spiritual paths like spokes on a bicycle wheel. At the outer rim, all the spokes are slightly apart, right? But as those spokes merge into the hub of the wheel, they all join. This point of merging is where one finds the inherent truth that is in all religions, if correctly understood. And that is the truth that we teach at Unity, where they all merge. Another question that is often asked about Unity is, what is Unity's belief about reincarnation? Some of you here have asked about that. I find that question kind of curious because reincarnation really isn't central to Unity's philosophy. Some Unity students believe in reincarnation and some don't. It's not something that can be easily verified, to my knowledge, one way or the other. And even if you do believe in reincarnation, what exactly does it mean? Are you reincarnated as a human in every life? Are you reincarnated as an animal if you fail to develop your human potential in a certain life? Or can reincarnation mean that you are always everything, but that maybe due to your karma, you only identify with one particular thing or person in a particular life, like a cat or a leaf or a tree or a human or the ocean? Well, it's true that most Unity students believe in reincarnation. You can certainly be in harmony with the Unity way of life without believing in it one way or another, or just not knowing. Unity does teach, however, that the soul is eternal. Our soul was not created at birth, nor will it die when our bodies die. This lifetime is just one episode in the endless progression of our soul's unfoldment. What happened to our soul before we entered into this particular life experience and what happens to it after we leave this particular body is a matter of conjecture. Reincarnation is one possible explanation. There are two primary reasons why many people have difficulty accepting the idea of reincarnation. One reason is that it negates the traditional Christian ideas of heaven and hell. The other reason is that we identify so strongly with this particular body. We think that we are our body, rather than a living soul existing in this little vehicle. We are like the actor who kind of believes that he's the role that he's playing and not the actor within it. It's often written that reincarnation was originally in the Bible. I'm sure many of you have read that. I've learned that in certain classes. But that it was taken out of the Bible at the Treaty of Nicaea in the fourth century. Most of my teachers who have said that have also said that there's no definitive way to prove that historically one way or another, that it was originally in the Bible or not. The reason I've read that reincarnation was taken out of the Bible was to create the idea of heaven and hell in order to get more members into the very small Christian sect, because the idea of heaven and hell set Christianity apart from the other competing religions. Just something to think about. When and where did the idea of reincarnation originate in the first place? It's as old as humans' awareness of themselves and the world. Ancient people saw the principle of rebirth everywhere in nature. Every night the sun would die to be reborn in the morning. Every autumn the green earth would die to be reborn in the spring. The motif of death and rebirth is recorded in many legends and myths whose origins precede recorded history. Although reincarnation was not adopted by the mainstream of Western religion, it's a fundamental tenet of most Eastern religions and has been adopted by certain mystical strands of Western religion and philosophy. But again, reincarnation is not a fundamental part of the Unity teachings. Often related to reincarnation, though, is the idea of karma. Karma is a Sanskrit word which means basically that we reap what we sow. This idea is all over the Bible and is very much a part of Unity's teachings. It's not called karma or translated karma in the Bible, but it's there. It's the idea that we draw to us our experiences by the way we think and live. It is the law of cause and effect. Unity doesn't believe that God punishes us to keep us in line. We believe the purpose of life on earth is to learn and grow, not to suffer. Learning may or may not involve suffering sometimes, but that's largely up to us. What we call karma is simply the result of how we choose to use our free will. Through unconditional forgiveness of ourselves and others, we can always choose to release the past, though, release our karma, so to speak. Some people get so wrapped up in the idea of karma, though, that they forget that we have free will and that life is what we make it. Unity is so rich with teachings that I could go on forever. I could talk for months. In fact, Katrina and I have talked for a few months about it. You could study for lifetimes and never get to the bottom. I encourage you to check out Unity's website, unity.org. You'd be amazed at all the teachings you can access there. As for specific books, I would especially refer you to the 4 books which provided most of the material that I've shared with you today. 1, Unity, A Quest for Truth by Eric Butterworth. 2, Lessons in Truth by Emily Cady. 3, The Unity Way by Dr. Marcus Bach. And 4, Dynamics for Living by Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore. And I'm going to put the bibliography, the names of these 4 books and their authors in the email that comes out tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock, right under the place where you can listen to the truth lesson. You know how every Monday you get the truth lesson from Sunday? Those 4 books will be right under there to make it easier for you. But I highly encourage you to give yourself a treat and delve more deeply into these teachings. You deserve it.